You're watching her walk toward the block. She's 15, maybe 16. The executioners have dressed her in white because that's what they do for virgins before they kill them. And you realize, standing in this crowd of thousands, that you're about to watch them solve a legal problem with a child's body. She's trembling. Everyone can see it. The white fabric shakes, and then one of the executioners steps forward and does something that makes the entire crowd go silent. He doesn't lead her to the block. He drags her behind a curtain first. Because there's a law, you see, a sacred Roman law that's been on the books for centuries. You cannot execute a virgin. The gods forbid it. It pollutes the sanctity of the death itself. So they rape her first, to make it legal. Before we go any further into this darkness, I need to know something. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It genuinely amazes me that a story this disturbing, from 2,000 years ago, can reach people in every corner of the world today. Your engagement keeps these histories alive. Now back to the machine. Because what you just witnessed wasn't an accident. It wasn't one moment of cruelty in an otherwise normal empire. It was a deliberate legal framework, argued by lawyers, approved by the emperor himself, and executed by men who went home to their own daughters afterward. The year is 38 AD. The emperor is Caligula, and he's about to show Rome that law itself can become an instrument of psychological torture. Not by breaking the law, by following it exactly. Here's what most people get wrong about Caligula. They think he was insane, unhinged, a madman who did random terrible things because his brain was broken. The historical record tells a completely different story. It shows a man who understood Roman law better than anyone alive and used that knowledge to architect suffering with surgical precision. The ancient sources, Suetonius, Tacitus, Cassius Dio, men writing within living memory of these events, they don't describe chaos. They describe a system. 5 distinct categories of cruelty, each one designed to destroy a different part of the human soul while remaining technically legal under Roman law. And the most terrifying part? He wasn't born this way. He was carefully, methodically trained in how to break people by the previous emperor, who murdered his entire family while he watched. Let me take you back to where it started. To the moment an 8-year-old boy learned that love makes you vulnerable, and power makes you safe. The year is 19 AD. Little Gaius Caesar, nobody calls him Caligula yet, is the son of Rome's greatest general, Germanicus. Picture a childhood that seems almost mythological. He grows up in military camps along the Rhine, surrounded by legionaries who treat him like a mascot. They make him a miniature uniform, tiny armor, little red boots that fit his child-sized feet. The soldiers call him Caligula, little boots, and they genuinely believe this kid brings them luck in battle. His father is beloved, genuinely beloved in a way that makes the Emperor Tiberius deeply, dangerously nervous, because Germanicus is charismatic where Tiberius is cold, popular where Tiberius is feared, and Rome is starting to whisper that maybe the wrong man is wearing the purple. Then Germanicus dies. Sudden illness, says the official report. But everyone knows his body showed signs of poisoning, and the orders came from somewhere close to the throne. What happens next is systematic erasure, not quick, not merciful, deliberate and slow, designed to maximize terror. His mother, Agrippina, a woman of legendary strength and nobility, is arrested for treason. They drag her from her home while her children watch. She's exiled to an island where they starve her. She eventually stops eating entirely, dies of starvation, but the records suggest it wasn't suicide. They forced food into her mouth toward the end, keeping her alive longer just to extend her suffering. His oldest brother, Nero Caesar, not the later emperor, same name, is imprisoned and starved until he tried to eat the stuffing from his own mattress. He died begging for food that never came. His second brother Drusus is exiled to a dungeon so small he can barely stand. The guards torture him with elaborate cruelty. He eventually smashes his own head against the stone walls until he dies because it's the only way to end it. One by one, methodically, the entire bloodline is erased. And young Caligula watches it happen. He's smart enough to understand what silence means, what survival costs. By the time he's 19, he's the last one left, the sole survivor. And then comes the summons from Tiberius. The emperor has retreated to Capri, a beautiful island off the coast of Italy. But what Tiberius has built there isn't a palace. The ancient sources describe it as something closer to a laboratory for testing the limits of human degradation. Tiberius has become paranoid, sexually depraved, inventing cruelties because he's bored and untouchable. Into this walks teenage Caligula. He knows Tiberius murdered his family. Everyone knows, but he can't show it, can't even hint at it. One flash of grief, one moment of anger, and he joins his brothers. So he doesn't just survive, he excels. Suetonius writes something that should chill you. Neither his natural temperament nor his self-control could be faulted. He bore with perfect composure the catastrophe of his nearest and dearest. Perfect composure, while living with his family's murderer. For 6 years, he learns to bury everything human, to watch without reacting, to smile while planning, to become exactly what Tiberius wants: obedient, entertaining, harmless. He's studying, taking notes on how a monster operates when there's no one to stop him. And then in 37 AD, Tiberius dies. Some say natural causes, others say Caligula smothered him with a pillow. Either way, the 19-year-old hostage is now Emperor of Rome. The city goes insane with joy. They're getting the son of beloved Germanicus. They think they're getting a hero. For 7 months, everything seems perfect. Caligula is generous, merciful, hosting games, honoring his family. Rome breathes easier. Then he gets sick, some kind of fever that lasts days. When it breaks, when he wakes up, something fundamental has changed. The ancient sources mark this as the turning point, as if the fever burned away whatever human restraint he'd been holding on to. And Rome discovers what he learned on Capri: how to use law itself as a weapon. The first act reveals itself when his sister Drusilla dies. Whether the rumors of incest were true or political propaganda doesn't matter. Everyone believed it. And Caligula doesn't just mourn. He weaponizes grief. He has the Senate officially declare Drusilla a goddess. There are now temples in her name where Romans are legally required to worship. But that's just the beginning. He declares a period of public mourning, and then he criminalizes happiness. It becomes a capital offense to laugh, to bathe, to have dinner with your family. Read that again, slowly. If someone catches you smiling during this mourning period, you can be executed for it. Your child tells a joke at breakfast. Do you laugh? Do you punish them for being a child? Every moment of natural human joy becomes a potential death sentence. He's discovered he can legislate emotion, control not just actions but feelings, make his inner world mandatory for everyone else. And once he realizes he can criminalize happiness, he starts experimenting with what else he can take. This leads to the second act, something so disturbing that historians still debate whether it actually happened or was later propaganda meant to demonize him. The sources claim Caligula establishes a brothel inside the imperial palace, not for himself, for the public, as a business. And it's not staffed by common prostitutes. It's staffed by the wives and children of Rome's noble families, senators' daughters, patrician sons, the aristocracy. He allegedly has heralds go into the streets to announce the prices. Different rates for married versus unmarried. Special pricing for virgins from senatorial families. And here's the detail that reveals the true genius of the horror. He keeps ledgers, detailed bureaucratic records, names, dates, transactions, the accounting of degradation. If you're a Roman nobleman, your entire identity is family honor, your lineage, your name. It's worth more than your life. And now your daughter's name is in a ledger in the imperial palace, listed with a price, and there's nothing you can do about it because objecting means execution. He's not just violating bodies. He's destroying the concept of family honor itself, making it meaningless, showing that your name, your history, your legacy can be turned into a commodity with one imperial decree. But public humiliation, he discovers, has limits. Eventually, people become numb to it. So he invents something worse: private humiliation with public witnesses. This is the third act. The banquet of predation. Picture yourself at an imperial dinner. You're sitting with your wife. Around you are 50 other senators with their wives. Everyone's drinking wine that tastes like fear. Caligula stands. The room goes silent. He walks slowly between the tables, looking at the women. His gaze is clinical, evaluative. He's shopping. He stops at your table, looks at your wife, inspects her like livestock, her teeth, her hair, the shape of her body. He doesn't ask, doesn't acknowledge you exist. He just takes her hand and leads her away. You sit there. You drink your wine. You wait. 20 minutes. 30. The conversation around you is forced, brittle. Finally, he brings her back. She sits down, won't look at you, and then he sits down too. He doesn't leave, he stays. And in front of everyone, your colleagues, your friends, your rivals, he begins to describe what just happened, in detail, clinical, graphic detail, rating her, comparing her to other senators' wives, making jokes, and you have to laugh. You have to nod. You have to thank him, because the alternative is watching your children die. He's not just violating your wife, he's destroying you, your ability to protect your family, your dignity, your identity as a Roman man. He's taking it all in front of everyone who matters, and tomorrow you have to see these same people and pretend it never happened while everyone knows exactly what happened. This is the genius of the system. He's not just breaking individuals, he's breaking the social fabric, making everyone complicit, making everyone a witness to everyone else's horror. But there's one bond even stronger than marriage, the bond between parent and child. And Caligula realizes he hasn't fully explored that territory yet. This is the fourth act, the most unwatchable. He begins executing people not for treason, not for crimes, just because he's bored or curious or wants to test something. And he develops a protocol. If he's executing someone's son, the father has to watch, not from a distance, front row. Suetonius records a specific incident that reveals the full architecture of this cruelty. A father watches his son executed. Immediately afterward, the body still warm, Caligula has this man brought to the imperial palace for dinner. That night, the father sits at Caligula's table, and Caligula just watches him, studies his face like he's conducting an experiment, checking to see if the father will cry, if he'll show grief. Because if he does, if he shows any emotion at all, it proves Caligula hasn't broken him completely, that there's still something human left to destroy. So the father sits there, eating food he can't taste, making conversation he can't hear, while his son's body cools somewhere and the man who ordered it killed analyzes his facial expressions for entertainment. He's not just taking your child, he's taking your right to grieve, turning the deepest human bond into a source of terror. Because now, if you love someone, that love becomes a weapon against you. The more you care, the more vulnerable you are. He's making love itself dangerous. For nearly 4 years, this machine runs perfectly. Senators learn to accept it. They rationalize. They survive. They tell themselves that if they just keep their heads down, stay quiet, smile at the right moments, they and their families might make it through. And Caligula becomes absolutely convinced that fear is permanent, that the machine is invincible, which is why he makes one fatal miscalculation. He aims his casual, everyday cruelty at a type of person who doesn't think like senators. Someone trained for violence, someone who stands next to him every single day with a weapon, a soldier named Cassius Chaerea. Chaerea is a senior officer in the Praetorian Guard, the emperor's personal bodyguards. Elite, lethal, standing inches from Caligula constantly. And Cherea has one physical characteristic that Caligula finds endlessly amusing: a high-pitched voice. Day after day, Caligula mocks him, makes jokes, and here's the specific detail that shows how casual his cruelty has become. When it's Cherea's turn to ask for the daily password, a military protocol done in front of all the other guards, Caligula assigns him passwords like Venus or Priapus, deliberately feminine or sexual words designed to make the other soldiers smirk. For Caligula, it's throwaway humor, barely worth remembering. For Cherea, every joke is a drop of poison accumulating into something lethal. Because Caligula has made a fatal calculation error. Senators can be humiliated because they want to live. They have children, estates, legacies worth protecting. But Cherea is a soldier, a man trained to solve problems with violence, and Caligula has just taught him that life under this emperor isn't worth living. January 24th, 41. A.D. Caligula is attending theatrical games. Around midday, he decides to leave through a narrow underground corridor connecting the theater to the palace. It's dimly lit, claustrophobic, with rough stone walls on both sides. The conspirators are waiting. Cherea steps forward. This is normal. Guards always check in. He asks for the password, and Caligula, completely unaware, totally secure in his invincibility, gives one final sneering, mocking response. Cherea screams, "Take this," and drives his sword up under Caligula's ribs. Caligula stumbles, tries to run, but the corridor is too narrow. There are conspirators at both ends. They swarm him. 30 stab wounds according to the sources. 30 times the blade goes in. 4 years of accumulated rage, humiliation, and terror released in 60 seconds of frenzied violence. And then it gets worse. The conspirators find his wife, Caesonia. She's begging, pleading, trying to reason with men who've just killed an emperor. They stab her to death. Then they find the nursery. Caligula's daughter, Julia Drusilla, is 2 years old, maybe 3. A soldier picks her up. While she's crying for her mother, he swings her head first into a marble wall. They have to make sure there's no heir, no one who could grow up seeking vengeance. So they murder a toddler. This is what happens when the machine breaks. It doesn't just stop. It devours everything connected to it. For a few hours, it seems like Rome might actually change. The Senate gathers, debates restoring the Republic. For the first time in generations, there's real discussion about what Rome should be. And then the Praetorian Guard makes a decision. While the Senate talks, soldiers are looting the palace. One of them hears something behind a curtain. He pulls it back and finds a man hiding there, trembling, middle-aged with a stutter and a limp. Claudius, Caligula's uncle. The family embarrassment everyone thought was harmless. The guard looks at him and sees a new emperor. The Praetorians carry Claudius on their shoulders to their camp, proclaim him emperor, and while the Senate is still debating the future of the Republic, the army has already decided. The system survived. Caligula ruled for 3 years, 9 months, and 8 days. In that time, he proved something terrifying about power, that an entire state, its laws, its military, its bureaucracy, can be turned into an instrument of personal psychological warfare. He didn't work outside the system. He made the system his weapon. The ledgers in the imperial brothel? That's bureaucracy doing its job. The forced mourning? That's law enforcement doing its job. Every atrocity was technically legal because he was the law. And when he died, the machine didn't die with him. It just found a new operator. Nero burning Rome. Domitian executing people for looking at him wrong. Commodus forcing senators to watch him fight as a gladiator. The blueprint remained. The machine kept evolving. After Claudius became emperor, he had most of Caligula's records destroyed. The ledgers, the correspondence, the documents, burned. Which means what we know, the 5 acts, the systematic terror, that's just what survived the purge. Imagine what was so disturbing that even in an empire that crucified thousands and fed people to lions, They decided it needed to be erased from history. There's a girl in a white dress at the beginning of this story. She's one name in a massive legal record. We don't know what she did. We don't know if she did anything. We only know that Roman law had a loophole and Caligula found it. That's the machine. Not random cruelty, systematic, legal, documented horror. And the blueprint never disappeared. 2,000 years later, we're still trying to understand how one human being could architect this level of suffering. Not by breaking the rules, by following them exactly.